Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Rune Factory 5 guide. Today we're going to take a look at one of the core aspects of this game, the farming. Now, it is no secret that this series came out of the then Harvest Moon, now Story of Season series, and as such, as you would expect, farming is a huge aspect of it. But in some ways, I would say that because this is also the RPG side of things, it has taken the farming to a whole new level. In most other farming games, you have a few different levels of quality, either determined by color or letters and so on. So, you might have like C, B, A, S, etc. grade, or normal silver, gold, iridium, etc. grade. In this, you have 10 different levels of quality for all of your crops. But to get started, let's get with the basics. Just as you would expect in any farming sim, you have to clear your field and do all that. So let's get around to clearing it, and we'll be right back. In the meantime, while I clear this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like it and leave a comment. Let me know what you want to see. Good content. We'll improve it over time. Anyways, I will be right back. All right, and we're back. This is one of the later farm dragons that you get, so I haven't really touched it. So we've cleared the field. Same thing you do when you enter your field in any farming sim. Next steps, the game teaches you pretty basics, is, hoe it, etc. And just like in other farming sims, yeah, you can do just the one, or you can, as you get better and better tools, you can charge up and cover wider areas. So, okay, how does this differ from everything else? Well, you can kind of see it already. That little box on the right. You see, I have a tool on me, the magnifying glass. You can buy this for 2,000 gold or 1,800 on Fridays from the general store in town. And what it does is when you have either it equipped, or in the case of with like the tool that I have here, a tool with that information on it equipped, so I've, upgraded my tool to have it, it gives me information on my crops and my soil. Now, I'll get into that in a little bit more detail as we get further on, but let's get through the start of how the basics of everything here works and how it differs from other games. So, just like everything else, and the game's going to teach you, yes, go buy your seeds. You can buy them first from the general store. Later, once you have the flower shop, you'll get the flower seeds from there as well as some of the tree seeds. And there are a couple places where you can get tree seeds in-game. I will show you those here in a little bit. But just like with the tools, and you don't need to upgrade here, you can hold down to charge and get a simple 2x2 spare. Now, when we get into the statistics, each of these little 2x2 square areas is kind of the same, even if you have different crops in this same 2x2 square. So if I do, say, I'll put a leek here, and a corn here, and, so on. Potato here. And I don't really know what's up on. But you get the idea. If I pull out one of my tools that has the equipment on it, or this, overall soil level, anything that I do that would affect the soil here, like fertilizer or whatever, will affect this entire 2x2 square. And that's what all of these are. These are different types of fertilizers, but they affect different things. See, fertilizer in this game isn't just affecting quality. If you fertilize your crops in Stardew Valley, or even the Story Seasons series from which this came from, what you do is you get higher quality crops. Well, Stardew Valley also kind of has touches of it with speed grows. So that's what these formulas are. These are your growth speed. But then you've also got health restore for your soil. You've got protection for things against like typhoons and snowstorms. You've got things that increase the size of your crops, and so on. So there's a whole bunch of different fertilizers that you can use. And that's what all these statistics that you're seeing here on the site are. But before we get into that, let's take a look at the seeds. I even have it on my system right here. So these are level 10. You can see these are corn seeds are level 10, but my leeks are level 2, and my potatoes are level 4. That's because different crops will have different levels based on what you do with them. So see, that's where the sickle comes in. When you have a fully grown crop, and let's go see if I have some on one of my other dragons. You can, instead of harvesting it, use your sickle on it, and it will increase the level of the crop up to the maximum level of whatever your sickle has. So those are not a good example. Those were the starfall seeds from my last video on the starfall. Here we go. My bok choy. Let me equip my sickle here. So you can see my bok choy is currently level 9, and I'm going to get 3 of them. Now, the blue color it's a change. So these were probably a level 8 seed that I planted, but because I've got quality level and some of these other statistics here in there, it's actually going to go higher quality. But I'm not going to get as many bok choy this week because of a poor harvest. For whatever reason, probably because it's out of season. But you can see, like, all my crops out here are getting higher levels. Or they're showing the level right here, like this one is showing the level 1. It will, if I harvest, it will probably be a level 2. If I harvest this one, this is a level 9, and this is showing level 7. If I harvest this, and I stash those will hopefully be level 8, because they showed up. Oh, they only came out as level 7. So it was accurate. But with this one, you can see it's level 9. If I use my sickle, I get a seed out of it. Same seed that I spent it on, but that seed... Oh. Wrong side. Is now a level 10 seed. Now, your crops can go all the way up to level 10. And one of the great things about that is your seeds will not... When you ship a crop, it's like, say, hey, I shipped these level 7 cabbages. If I ship these the next day or later that same day after they ship at 8 a.m., if that is a higher level than any that I have shipped of that same crop, the seeds in the store will now be at that same level. So that's how I got these level 10 corn. I started with level 1 corn seeds, and I worked my way up, growing them, cutting with my sickle, growing them, cutting with my sickle, and so on until I got to level 10. And then I sold level 10 corn. I now buy these seeds at the same cost as if they were level 1 seeds. So it is absolutely worth it, but they'll be worth way more money, they'll make better quality crops, and so on. These here, starfall pumpkins, let me just harvest those. There's a good example of another interesting thing about this. These orbs that grow here, you see spawn here, if I hit that, I got a skill up. And it's a random skill, it will just level up automatically. You will sometimes get that when you harvest your crops, and some crops are a much higher chance of it than others. They also increase your rune points. So step in there, I got my dark magic skill leveled up. So these are good examples of always good chemistry, fishing, etc. Ooh, and I managed to get a higher level seed from that. Once in a while, that was a starfall seed from the starfall video. That was a level 3 one that I picked up, and I got the level 4 seed. So you can, even without using your sickle, you can sometimes get a higher level seed when you harvest it. Another thing that you might get, it's not as common though, when you're harvesting, let's see if we can get any to show up over here, that will be another way of restoring rune points, but will not level up your skills like those orbs, are runies. They're the little person-looking guys, and now there's not happening there. But this is another good example here of what just happened. So this crop has hit points there, but the soil has no health. You can see the health at the very bottom on my right here. So let's take a look at this box now that we're really getting into the details of it. Your top few lines, so let's move over here. Crop level, that is the level of the crop that you've planted. If I plant a level 1 seed, it's going to be crop level 1, unless something changes it to become a crop level 2. Like this blue here is now crop level 9, for example. That was a level 8 seed probably that I planted, and now it's crop level 9. Growth rate is how far along it has grown. So these, I just harvested these and they're already at 75% growth rate. They'll have more fodder the very next day. The line below that, that is the health of your crop. So these here, the health of this field hit 0 hit points, but also probably the health of the crop, whereas this one, the health of the crop hasn't hit 0. If one or another hits 0, then when you harvest it, even if it's a repeat harvest like these ones, it will destroy your crop, which is what happened here. This one didn't bring the health of the soil down to 0 enough, but these ones probably did. Below that, you have that little line, that gap, and then you start getting into your soil quality. So you have it by soil level, which you can see in some of these. I've got this one here, 2.62. For this whole, again, 2x2 section. If I move to this little section, 3.14. Your crops and your soil will level up the more you do stuff with them. So, absolutely farming. Now, speed is the growth rate. So this is 1.25, 1.75. Things like the formula, let's sort these so they're all kind of together. Formula A, B, and C. These are your, as you can see, they grow faster, pretty, somewhat effective, pretty effective, super effective. These are your speed grows of this game. So if I equip one on here, first let's take a look at the stats before we do any of that. Let's take a look at the stats here because I want to demonstrate something here. The health of this here, look at the very bottom, is 75 with a damage resistance of 10. We're going to keep working on this one patch of land here with these crops. Speed level is 1.75 with, again, health of 75. I'm going to put my Formula C on there. And you can see it does that whole little batch. Now my speed level is still showing 175, but it will go up, and that maybe it does eventually cap at certain speeds. So if we do over here on, let's do this one. This is 1.25. And again, 112 health on this one. The reason I'm bringing up the health on these is that if you use too much fertilizer on the same day, so that's still showing 1.25. That will go up over time, but your health will also decrease if you start putting in too many fertilizers on the same crop. So now this is 100 health. You see, the speed didn't show its growth very well on this one just yet, but the health absolutely decreased because I put multiple fertilizers on there. But that's where things like Greenifier and Greenifier Plus come in. These are going to help your levels. So again, let's take a look at quality level 2.53. And that's where these are going to come in. Your Greenifier and your Greenifier Plus are going to do that better. But again, I'm putting fertilizers on there. So you got to be careful with what fertilizers you're putting on there. But there are a few ways to increase the health of your field. Starting with, very early on, decayed grass. Pop that on there, hit it with your hoe. Now we're at health 126. So it's a nice delicate balance here of what do I want to increase my stats of for my speed level, my growth speed, which is what's blue on here. So your speed level's on the left, okay, that's not going to grow up now, but you can see the blue, the growth speed went blue, where it's now 4.6. I think that's 4.4 target read from where I'm at. But that's what you're going to see your increases in things. Quality level is where you're going to get quality plus, is where you're going to see your increases from things. Size, that's where things like these come in. Giantizer and Minimizer. You can take your Giantizer, let's say you have a full field of fully grown crops. Like, let's say I had my fodder here. It wouldn't work on the fodder. But let's say I have this whole thing of hot fruits. Or I had a whole thing here of pumpkins. If I had 4 pumpkins in this 2x2 space, and I kept using Giantizer, I could eventually get it to get huge in size. But you can see I've got some of these size levels up, 1.5, 1.37, this was 2.25. Because I can make giant crops, which I can demonstrate what one of those looks like. Right over here. So like, if I did a 2x2 of turnips and then I kept using Giantizer on them, I would eventually get a tyrant turnip out of that whole space. Just like those giant Starfall pumpkins that you saw me picked out that took up that whole space, those will also take up that space. But there's other crops that if you plant them just as they are, will automatically take up that much space. So if I plant my Starfall seed here, you can see it's automatically going to be a 2x2 space. That's what it was. Trees are the same way. So not every crop is going to be the one spot, so keep that in mind. But let's get back to the health stats of these. So we've talked about the soil level. The soil level is going to help increase your crop level. Oh, and we just had an example. Throughout the day, stuff will appear on your field. It's not like some other games where it only happens overnight when you sleep. You do not need to sleep in this game, as I've discussed in previous videos. So they will, throughout the day, if you do not have your fields hoed, then stuff will pop up on them, preventing you from doing so. So let's just throw that out of there. Here we go. Overall soil level. So the soil level is going to affect a lot of things, including helping increase the crop level of your crops. So will the quality level. So your quality is where you're going to increase your actual item level. That's why I have... Let's see, do I have any of this in red? The red is it's going down, because these are out of season, or it's a poor harvest week for them. A lot of these are out of season. Because you can grow any crop at any time. And just unfortunately, it's autumn, so a lot of my crops are out of season. So I'm getting reduced crops. Even these are out of season, it looks like. Or something is affecting them. You have a number level. You have things you can do to increase the numbers of your levels. Like this is 1.5, number plus or minus. Because again, we have things like the no-rot, the greenifiers, and so on, all your fertilizers. There are ways that you can increase the levels of other things. There's also, you see here at the bottom, health. I've mentioned this is the health of your soil. Damage resist is important. You'll have an item. I don't know if I have any on me right now. Yes, I do. Perfect. Wettable powder. This, let's equip that. So let's take a look at this. This is damage resist 6. Put that on there. And then back to a tool. Damage resist is now 38. But again, my health has gone down because I'm using another fertilizer on it. So again, it's that balancing act. There's all these things. All your crops will start at level 1, they'll max at level 10. And there's different levels here. I don't know, I think the grow speed caps at 4.6. But then you'll have your speed level, your quality will cap out, and so on for these. But that gets to the next point. Your farm dragons. With the exception of the initial space outside the silo when you first start, most of your growing is going to be done on your farm dragons. It's the place where your barns will be planted, which we'll talk about those in another video when we get to taming. but you also have access to the farm dragons. And the guide will or your requests will kind of teach you how they work. But let's see if we have enough crystals in here to feed his one. Because you can feed them crystals to get the effects of fertilizers without the damage to your fields. So here we go, perfect. I have a Ventus crystal. That's not the one I wanted. I was thinking Glacius crystal. Gaia crystals, I can get these. Let's get a bunch of these. And we'll take a look over here and talk to the dragon. You'll be able to come up to where you can see this little marker here and talk to your dragon. This is the first one you get from there. You're like, hey there. Gaia crystals will temporarily boost the soil's health and damage resistance. So this will work like the greenifier, or not the greenifier, using your withered grass. You can also use corn or four-leaf clovers for those, and those are progressively better for health restoring, as well as a wettable powder. So if you know a typhoon is coming, everyone's talking about a typhoon or a blizzard, you can come up here and feed a bunch of Gaia crystals to your dragon, and that's going to protect all the crops on that dragon. Your Ignis crystal, these are your fire ones that you'll find these in the Kells volcanic region most likely. These are going to boost across the board your speed grow kind of thing. So this is your formula A, B, C kind of stuff for that entire field on your farm dragon. Your Glacius crystal just needs one. These will make it rain. These will be ones you'll probably find around like your ice ruins areas. You can sometimes find a full crystal floating in the water underneath the bridge just outside the silo, and so on. Your Ventus crystals will increase your crop yield. So this is going to be like where you saw all these ones over here, where I'm seeing the red on my, my number 1, 2, 5, so on. This is going to harvest 2. If I harvest this right now, I'll get 2. If I harvest this one, I'll get 1. But if, and that's a big if, because especially it's the time of day, I can catch Heinz in his shop, I can trade the fragments in for larger crystals, which the game does teach you about during that same request of feeding the dragons, and get another Ventus crystal, and then feed it 2 Ventus crystals to increase how many of those crops I can harvest. So let's see where Heinz is. He is not in there, so it's not going to work. Yeah, because it's after 2:30. It's afternoon on a holiday. So, and that's one of the downsides of a Heinz, and that's one of the downsides in this game in general of shopkeepers not being in their shops or being there but not being open, and so on. You have to go specifically to Heinz. Like, Lucas will take over the Crystalabra, at which point Heinz is very rarely in there, except for in like the early afternoons. So you'll want to get your crystals taken to him. Anyways, the last crystals are ones you're going to find very late game. But they're one of the reasons why the seal spell is, or the spell seal as they call it, is so important. They are those yellow ones, the Terra crystals. You remember the first field was a little 2x2, basically the same, or a 4x4. It was basically about the same size as my initial one that's over here to the Wind Dragon over. And you can see the size and the difference in these fields here. Well, I've been using my Terra crystals to increase my field size. So you'll start with each farm dragon with something smaller. Not necessarily as small as this. Your first one will be larger than this, but you'll still have to grow it over time using Terra crystals. And every dragon, you'll have a different, appearance of the dragon, which dungeon you get it from, and so on. But it works the same. Terra crystals makes more space available for planting crops. And with one of these, what it'll do is it'll add 1 to each side. So right now, this is a 4x4 grid. It would become a 5x5, or it might do, to kind of make it longer, do a 5x6 for this first one, because this is kind of a short one. And that's how eventually you'll get, the same size that I have here on my first farm dragon, the Earth Dragon, which is the maximum field size that you can get. you know, it's not huge, but you get 5 of these fields over the course of the game, which is more than you're going to need. Now, you can have your monsters do your farm work for you. We'll cover that in a taming video and the monsters video, but they absolutely can do it for you. That said, I know a lot of people don't usually do that much. I don't do it much myself. And there you go. So what do all your tools do? Well, let's take a look at them. You got your hoe is standard what you think it is, but it can also be used to get up bamboo shoots. That's important to know. And, just like the others, yes, we saw it already, you can charge it up, but it charges in a weird way. That it doesn't, instead of doing the one spot 2x2 4x4, it does 2x2, then it does a 2x4 length one, and then it grows to the 4x4 and so on. You have, of course, your water pot is going to grow 1, 2x2, 4, and so on. And we've talked a little bit about the sickle, but it's also used if you want to get bamboo shoots. And it can also be charged up. The downside is, unless you're near your farm, it's not going to show you what it does. And it will destroy crops. So, like, let me hover over here like this a little bit, just this way, trying to get that bamboo. It destroys my crops. And in the case of that one, I got back my seed because it was ready to harvest. So it's a versatile tool, but be careful with it. I prefer not to charge it unless I'm somewhere that's just specifically, like maybe I'm way out here and I know it's not going to affect my crops, but I want multiple bamboo shoots because I've got them growing. And I didn't even hit that one over there. So it's finicky. And those are your big 3 for the farming, of course. I mean, you'll have your brush, which we'll talk about with taming. Your magnifying glass, which you can use as an upgrade component to your tools. That's why if I have my hoe here, I can do this. But you know what else I can put it on? See, are my boots level 10? They are not. I go down here and upgrade my boots and show you that it can be upgraded onto anything. So if you want that information at all times, some people do it, they put it on like their hat or their boots. So that no matter what they have equipped, like they can be walking around with their sword out or what have you, they can see those statistics. Oh, I'm thinking of my stream playthrough where it's out here. But yeah, you can upgrade the magnifying glass. Like I said, it's 2,000 base price. You can only buy it at the general store. But Fridays are 10% off, so you can get it at 1,800. Let's remove the boots. Go to upgrade. Well, I'm at the wrong table anyways. It's weapons. Upgrade armor. Upgrade the boots. And magnifying glass on them. And now we'll put those back on. And now I'll have that information regardless of what's in hand. So if I wanted to look at soil quality while planting seeds, for example. So you have to have something in your hands. You can't just be like, oh, I have nothing out here. But like my sword does not have that on it. And let's go up top here. And demonstrate again with some of that space that I just sized up in the demonstration of that. If I want to, say, plant these, I can still see here what the quality is. Now, sometimes it gets finicky, like you saw with my trees. It doesn't like to show the crop level sometimes, but other times it's just fine. And yes, you can use the sickle to cut down your trees when your trees are fully grown. You can do that. That's the way to get like better quality trees. So like, yeah, it doesn't show very well because they're the blue. But crop level 3, crop level 3, crop level 1. You can kind of see that there's just a base one. But they're going up. They are improving. There are improvements to each of these, but they're not doing good in general, and I need to heal these fields. But yeah, those are your 4 main tools for farming. There's obviously other stuff you can use. The hammer and the axe are going to be for clearing your fields. Your brush will get you your relationship up with your monsters so that they'll work your fields, and so on. And again, fertilizers. Just remember that you can put 1 on your field and it's fine. If you put multiple on in the same day, it will reduce the hit points of your field. And then finally, the no rot. That just kind of helps. Let's just equip that. Show what that does on your stats. So, let's see what we're looking at here. Change-wise. Oh, wrong button. Oh, wrong button again. And let's take a look and see, compare the 2 pictures, shall we? I'm not seeing any improvements. So that just kind of helps, I guess, reduce wilting chances. It's kind of probably the least useful unless there's something hidden that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. So let's double check that real quick. Because wilting is not a huge worry in this game, unless you're like, hey, I'm not going to water my crops for a few days. Because as long as you put water on them, even if they're wilted, they'll be fine the next day, or they'll even be fine the same day. If I go find any that are kind of wilted looking. Okay, so yeah, this one here is wilting. All I gotta do is water it, and it's fine again. So as long as you're not, like, avoiding your crops daily, there's no point to use no rot. It's absolutely kind of pointless. But if you're not watering every day for whatever reason, I guess it can be useful. But that's it for it. Again, here's one that's kind of wilting. Boom, it's fine. And that is the basics. Like I said, it's a little more complicated than most other of these games of this type that you're going to find because it's got those RPG mechanics in it, and they really went all out. That's one of the things I love about this, is it's one of those ones that, little kids can get it and get the basics, before they really understand like the underlying mechanics of all the levels and systems and all that. But if you want to get into the depth of that and really crunch it and get your best quality crops and whatever, you can do that. And yes, you can also get the huge crops. So that is going to do it for today. Once again, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya.